Welcome to Alaska's Turnagain Arm. It is incredible that one area can pack so much punch. Unbelievable scenery, a tidal phenomenon that will astound you, especially when you see people surfing it. Telltale signs of the world's second largest earthquake, if you know where to look. And the chance to see whales and Dall sheep in the wild. Throw in a couple quaint Alaskan towns and some truly epic hiking trails, and there you have it. An Alaskan treasure a stone's throw away from Anchorage and easily accessible by the world-famous Seward Highway. Jump on in and let us introduce you to Alaska's Turnagain Arm, saving the most epic and most unbelievable for last. In episode 1, we called the Turnagain Arm arguably the most epic backyard of any American city. Challenge us on that one if you want, but we'll need some hardcore convincing. Because this is what lies a short 25 minutes from downtown Anchorage. The Turnagain Arm is a waterway in the northern part of Alaska's Cook Inlet. This is the great state of Alaska, surrounded by the Gulf of Alaska to the south, the Bering Sea to the west, and the Chukchi and Beaufort Seas to the north. This inlet of the Gulf of Alaska is called the Cook Inlet, and in its northernmost reaches we find the Knik Arm and the Turnagain Arm. The Turnagain Arm stretches about 45 miles long, and if you're wondering how deep it is, well, that is the cool thing. The Arm is home to the largest tides in the United States. Here, the difference between low and high tide averages 30 feet. That is huge, and it gives rise to one of Mother Nature's most fascinating phenomena, a boar tide. During low tide, the Arm nearly empties, leaving behind broad mudflats. Imagine the sheer amount of seawater that must come into the Arm to raise water levels by 30 feet. And now, take into account that all that seawater has to move through a relatively narrow waterway. What is going to happen? The incoming tide is not going to come in gently. It is going to form a wave that barrels into the Turnagain Arm at speeds ranging between 6 and 24 miles an hour. It is called a tidal bore. Alaska is home to an adventurous bunch and tends to attract travelers cut from the same cloth. So of course, even though this water is cold, locals and visitors alike come here to surf the famous Turnagain Arm boar tide. Twice a day the wave comes in, its height depending on the tidal range. The greater the difference between low and high tide, the taller the wave. On its best days, the wave can get up to 10 feet tall. The boar tide schedule is easy to find online, telling when the wave will arrive and whether it's predicted to be tiny, big, or somewhere in between. And there are 5 viewing pullouts along the Arm where viewers can watch the waves sweep into the Arm, carrying along surfers with it. The boar tide alone could be the Turnagain Arm's claim to fame, but there is so much more going on here. For one, beluga whales. 5 populations of beluga whales live in Alaska, but interestingly, data indicates they do not interbreed, and so they maintain very clear separate groups. The most genetically distinct group lives here in the Cook Inlet. The Cook Inlet beluga is classified as endangered, with only about 331 whales counted in 2022. These highly social, highly vocal mammals often venture into the Turnagain Arm, especially from mid-July through August, when the salmon are running. One of the best places to see them from is Bird Point. This beautifully built lookout point flows smoothly with the landscape, educating visitors and providing stellar views of the Arm. There is even a bike trail that runs from here all the way to Girdwood, 6 miles away, complete with air and tools for any repair your bike might need. And when the whales do stop by, man is it a sight. Their white bodies flash against the silty waters, lacking a dorsal fin so they can move easily through sea ice when it begins to form. And speaking of sea ice, if you're wondering how this place changes in the wintertime, oh, just wait. If you can believe it, something happens here to make this place even more epic. When we saw it, it left us speechless. You're going to see it, but we're going to leave the very best for last. While the boar tide comes and goes twice a day, and the whales come and go when they will, the mountains are always here, ready to welcome adventurous hikers up their slopes. In fact, it is here that we experience one of the most stunning and challenging hikes of our lives. We're popping over to the settlement of Hope on the other side of the Arm. With a year-round population of about 161 people, Hope is cradled within the valley of Resurrection Creek and tucked right up against the Turnagain Arm. In the late 1800s, gold was discovered in Resurrection Creek, and a mining camp sprang up shortly thereafter. At one point, the population of Hope swelled to over 3,000. Now it is an awesome place to come to camp, fish for salmon, learn all about the town's interesting history, and hike. All of our research says that if we want to challenge an absolutely to die for views, we should take on Hope Point Trail. We are diving in, but to be honest, we have no idea what we are in for. So this is a registry. We put down our name, where we're going, the day we started, the time we started, so that if anything happens to us, somebody knows that we were out here. And maybe they could send help. Hope Point Trail is about 8.5 miles there and back, depending on how high you go. In this time, you experience a huge variation in climate and ecosystems. Right now, we are in a lush forest, surrounded by both deciduous and coniferous trees. There isn't a patch of snow in sight, it's full-on summer, and it is hot.
Oh, look at this.
What is it?
It's a heart that says hope.
Aww.
Someone must have made this and throw them around here on the trail for people to find.
That's beautiful.
Wow. Look at this amazing view. It's so beautiful. So we've been on the trail for about 2 hours and we have gained about 1,000 feet in elevation. We have 2,600 feet more to go. That's the town of Hope right there.
As we climb higher, we leave the forest behind. We are now in the zone of alpine meadows, full of wildflowers, low shrubs, and a few coniferous stragglers. And the views of the Arm are, well, put it this way. In all of our time here in Alaska, we have never seen the Turnagain Arm like this. As we go higher, it gets colder and colder, but it's actually pretty refreshing. After the hike coming up here, you get really hot. So it's kind of nice to be up here with the cold wind, for now at least.
We're almost there. We gotta make it all the way to the top over there.
And now the world has changed. We are far past the realm of lush alpine meadows. No trees survive up here. We are now in a climate of harsh extremes, bitter cold, and gale force winds. It's crazy windy up here. I don't know if we're gonna be able to make it to the summit. The wind has really picked up and it's cold. So we'll see if we make it. But man, the world just changed getting up this high. In almost poetic fashion, we find ourselves suddenly surrounded by something very familiar. Tundra. This time the alpine variety, so similar to the Arctic tundra we just returned from in episode 8. It's crazy to think that far below, that hot, lush forest sits, a completely different world from up here. We are surrounded by 360 degrees of beauty, a landscape of brutal extremes, and it is magnificent. Suddenly, it's technical, and we realize we really should have crampons and trekking poles, just to be safe. But here we are without them, so we take it slow. But at this point, nothing is going to stop us from getting to the top of Hope Point. And boy, are we grateful we kept at it, because the view from the other side of the mountain takes our breath away.
So windy! Whoa! That's it, that's the summit. We made it! That was a crazy hike.
Hope Point has an elevation of 3,708 feet. And to think, we started this hike at, well, sea level. We stayed just long enough to soak up the views and then start heading down. We have to get down fast because the sun is setting. Though it's Alaska in the summertime, so this sunset will take its sweet time. Little do we know, Mama Nature is going to send us off with a bang. Did you know that Alaska is the most seismically active state in the US? This is one of the main reasons. The massive Alaska Aleutian Megathrust Fault, where the Pacific Plate is subducting beneath the North American Plate. The movement along this plate boundary led to the second largest recorded earthquake in Earth's history, and the Turnagain Arm shows scars of that quake, if you know where to look. And that brings us to... Around the upper reaches of the arm, a curious sight can be seen. Large swaths of dead trees standing tall within marshy bogs like a forest of ghosts. In 1964, when a magnitude 9.2 quake struck Alaska, large sections of bedrock surrounding the arm dropped by 5 to 9 feet in a matter of seconds. Salt water inundated those areas, soaking the roots of the trees and killing them. Since then, feet of silt has filled the void, creating a new surface. But the trees still remain, a powerful testament to the power of Alaska's geology. And if that weren't enough, the Turnagain Arm has another unexpected geological treat up its sleeve. And this one is all about faults. A fault is a boundary between two bodies of rock along which movement occurs. These bodies of rock could be as small as the cliff behind your house, to entire mountain ranges, to entire sections of the Earth's crust. It doesn't matter. If there's a fracture and movement is taking place along it, it's a fault. Alaska is home to many large-scale faults, which owe their existence to a fascinating and ongoing geological history. One of them is the Eagle River Thrust Fault, which takes place right along here. There aren't a lot of places in the world where you can drive right across a major fault zone and see it in action. And you guessed it, right here on the Turnagain Arm is one of them. West of the fault, one can see the blocky, light-colored rocks of the McHugh Complex. Triassic to Cretaceous in age, the McHugh Complex is a tectonic melange, or jumble, of large blocks of different rock types. East of the fault, one can see the darker, thinly bedded layers of the Valdez group. These sedimentary rocks formed in a deep marine setting around the late Cretaceous, so they are younger than the rocks of the McHugh complex. The fault zone itself is several hundred yards wide and sits just west of Indian Creek, with some great spotting in the mile of highway just east of Falls Creek Trail. Along this stretch, one can see a great deal of fracturing and chewed up rock, evidence of two large bodies grinding past one another. And most fascinating, this area is a treasure trove of a particularly awesome geological feature. Right here is a little mini fault, part of the larger fault zone system. And right here, you can see uniquely shaped abrasions. This is a slickenside, an abraded and polished surface caused by frictional movement between two bodies of rock. The slickensides feel smooth in one direction and rough in the other, and this tells you the direction of relative movement along the fault. In this case, this section of rock was moving in this direction. Isn't that the coolest thing? Of course, natural history isn't the only history that abounds here on the Arm. Here at Beluga Point sits one of the most significant archaeological sites of the Upper Cook Inlet. This site has yielded evidence of early use and hunting dating as far back as 10,000 years, including fire pit hearths and the bones of mountain sheep, who, in fact, still live in this region. Dall sheep can often be seen perched along the rock outcrops of Windy Corner, not far from the Bird Point site. It is a very unique thing to see these remarkable animals up close right from the roadside. As you have seen, there are treasures up and down both sides of the Turnagain Arm, and the very end of the Arm is no different. The Arm ends here, where the Seward Highway takes a dramatic turn and multiple rivers and creeks flow into the tidal mudflats. One of them is Portage Creek, and its valley, Portage Valley, is a place not to be missed. Just a few short miles up from the Arm is one of our favorite camping spots. Tucked right along Tangle Pond, the Chugach Mountains rise majestically before us, and the world is calm. We have no cell service out here, and honestly, we love it. It's the perfect place to disconnect and appreciate the beauty of Alaska's wild spaces. And it's incredible that a spot like this sits just 1 hour from downtown Anchorage. We're taking a night off and resting up because tomorrow we have another hiking day, this time up close and personal with one of the pinnacle natural landmarks of any Alaskan adventure: glaciers. Alaska is full of them. And we feel like Portage Valley could easily be nicknamed Glacier Alley. It seems like everywhere we turn, glaciers tower high above us, slowly oozing down the mountainsides, feeding the creeks and rivers that flow into the Turnagain Arm. Many of these icy Goliaths can only be reached by helicopter or skilled mountaineers. But every so often, there is a chance to get a little closer with just the power of your own 2 feet. Today we are headed up Byron Glacier Trail. It's not too crazy of a hike, and yet you can get right up next to a glacier. So join us for this little jaunt up to see some of Alaska's natural wonders. I want to be doing this till the day I die. Byron Glacier Trail is actually a pretty short hike by Alaskan standards, only about 2.5 miles in and out. But we know we'll be out here for a while because it's the destination, what lies at the end of this trail, that really interests us. Still, there's no harm in taking one sweet time to enjoy the journey. In no time, we come around the corner to see our first ice cave in the distance. It is really incredible to be in a place where almost everywhere you look, glaciers pour down the mountainsides, though they are shadows of their former selves. Once upon a time, these were all merely tributary glaciers, flowing into Portage Glacier, who filled Portage Valley and flowed all the way out to the Turnagain Arm. The rate at which glaciers are melting in the state of Alaska has been a cause for significant concern in recent years. According to the Alaska Department of Natural Resources, Alaska's glaciers are in steep decline and are among the fastest melting glaciers on Earth. Research indicates that Alaska's glaciers have been losing approximately 75 billion metric tons of ice annually. And we feel as though we are witnessing just a microcosm of this larger problem right here in this place. We continue our hike up the valley, and all around us we see signs of geological processes at work. Byron Creek snakes along the valley floor in braids, common for glacially fed streams and rivers, as they carry high sediment loads. And we highly suspect the hill we just climbed over was an old terminal moraine of Byron Glacier. A terminal moraine forms when melt at the glacier's leading edge deposits rocks and sediment that it carried along its journey, creating a distinctive ridge-like landform. Behind us, that classic U-shaped valley is clear evidence that Byron Glacier once filled and carved its way through this valley. Portage Lake shimmers in the distance. Just 100 years ago, we would have seen Portage Glacier here instead of the lake. It has receded that much. After a bit more scrambling, we come to our second ice cave. In the winter, when the ice caves are more stable, maybe we would venture inside, but right now, that's extremely dangerous. So we take it all in from a safe distance. We do take on one activity that is risky, however. This might look like a pile of rocks, but really we are on the ice now. And every so often we see signs of crevasses all around us. These fractures in the ice surface can open, close, and shift without a moment's notice. And they can sneak up on you. We take a brief moment to reflect and take in the landscape, each in our own way. Jose through photography, and me through sketching. We decide our final destination will be this smoothed over chunk of bedrock and the striking waterfall carving into its western edge. Byron Glacier towers above, and all we can do is gaze up, humbled by this massive and powerful structure. The sheer amount of water coming off Byron is astounding. This flow will reduce in the winter, but probably not completely. If we come back next year, we will probably see even less ice. We reach our destination, and as predicted, we see signs of how it came to be so smoothed over, much like a river rock. Rocks trapped in the bottom of Byron Glacier left these scratches, called glacial striations, telling us that once upon a time, Byron Glacier flowed right over this spot on its way to meet Portage Glacier. As the light fades, we finally head back down, surrounded by those colossal structures of the disappearing landscape. No exploration of the Turnagain Arm would be complete without a jaunt over to the cool little town of Girdwood. Just like the Arm, this town packs a lot of punch. Surrounded by incredible natural beauty, life here is entrenched in the outdoors. It is home to Alyeska Ski Resort and its famous runs down Mount Alyeska, including North America's longest continuous double black run. In the summer, the lifts transport daring mountain bikers up the mountain. And of course, hiking trails abound in the surrounding Chugach Mountains. Girdwood also has its roots as a gold mining camp established in the early 1900s, but the settlement was originally located right along the Arm. Knowing what you know now about the history of this region, can you guess why it was moved here 2.5 miles up the valley? During the 1964 quake, the ground beneath Girdwood dropped by 9 feet, putting much of the town below the high tide line. This one massive event forced the entire town to relocate to its present location. Girdwood is also home to one of my favorite coffee shops in Alaska. Unabashedly nerdy and chock full of memorabilia, The Grind is a great place to hang and work. And not gonna lie, the food is pretty awesome. And this town is home to hands down the most artsy and beautiful laundromat we've ever encountered. And that's saying something. After 4 years on the road, we've been to a lot of them. And this mural, it is something else. All right, it is time to share what we consider the Turnagain Arm's most epic show. The thing is, it's a show that it only puts on in winter. These are the ice tides of Alaska's Turnagain Arm. If you joined us for our winter road trip in episode 5, you caught a glimpse of this. It's hard to describe just how otherworldly this site is, standing right next to it in person. Footage only does it so much justice. During the winter, sea ice forms within the shallow waters of the Arm. But of course, nothing stops the tide from rolling in and out twice a day, Mother Nature's rhythmic metronome. As winter progresses, the Arm becomes so choked with sea ice that the waterway almost resembles the fractured, textured surface of a dried-out lakebed. But this surface flows. It is hypnotizing to watch. It looks as though a whole section of Earth is slowly sliding out to sea, a constant conveyor belt of ice and slush. We remember the first time we saw the ice tides and how we stopped to watch in wonder. In all of our travels, we have never, ever seen anything that compares. No matter the season, the Turnagain Arm is a magnificent corner of Alaska and obviously one of our favorite places that just keeps calling us back to it. Now we head onwards to a new slice of Alaskan heaven where a whole new set of summer adventures await. And of course, we are bringing you along for the ride next time on Art We There Yet. Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give us a like.
Subscribe to our channel.
Send us a comment below. And for exclusive content and a behind-the-scenes view of the Art We There Yet journey,
Join us on Patreon.
see you over on Patreon.